There's a town in America where you can buy a 4-bedroom house for $32,000. Sounds like a dream. It's a trap. You've been lied to. The real estate algorithms, the relocation guides, the best places to retire listicles. They all push you towards zip codes that look like steals on paper and quietly drain your savings, your sanity, and in a few cases, your kids' blood lead levels in person. The houses are cheap because nobody who actually knows the town will buy them. The mortgages are easy because the banks wrote these places off 2 decades ago. And the moving truck deposit, of course, is non-refundable. What if the real answer isn't where can I get more house for less money, but which towns am I being quietly pushed toward by people who do not care if I survive there? Today, we're breaking down 13 American towns you should never move to in 2026, even if the houses are practically free. We're talking about a village so remote the United States Postal Service still delivers the mail by mule, a town that has been on fire, underground, since 1962, and a lake in Georgia that has swallowed more than 700 people since the 1950s and is still hungry. Think you can spot a bad zip code from a Zillow listing? You can't. Because real estate apps don't show you the EPA reports, relocation guides don't mention the cancer clusters, and the Chamber of Commerce will not, under any circumstances, tell you the sidewalks flood with raw sewage every spring. Subscribe if you'd rather hear about these places from me than from the moving truck you can't afford to send back. Let's break it down. Number 13, Memphis, Tennessee, home of Elvis, birthplace of rock and roll. Also home to the highest murder rate of any major American city in 2024. Graceland sells you the king. The neighborhoods around it sell you a very different package. Per FBI data analyzed by The Hill, Memphis recorded 2,501 violent crimes per 100,000 people in 2024, roughly 7 times the national rate. Neighborhood Scout puts your odds of being a crime victim at 1 in 11. Median household income sits at $51,736. Poverty, 23.1%. And in 2022, Memphis led the nation in gun thefts at 546 per 100,000 people, nearly double Detroit's number. The city has actually made real progress in 2025. Homicides dropped sharply. The structural problem, though, is older than any mayor, and the neighborhoods that have hurt the most have been hurting for 40 years. Here's the part the tourism board does not put on the welcome mural. Graceland. Gorgeous. The $77 tour, the white limousine, the polyester capes, all of it immaculate. But 12 blocks away, you're parking your rental under a streetlight that hasn't worked since the Obama administration. The city sells you Elvis. The neighborhood sells you a different deal. And whoever broke into your glove compartment is, statistically, having an excellent week. Picture sirens layered over blues guitar drifting up Beale Street. The neon is loud. The blocks 4 streets over are quieter than they should be. Like this video if you've ever talked yourself into a sketchy zip code because the house was just so cute. And buckle up because the next place doesn't have streetlights at all. It also doesn't have streets. Number 12, Supai, Arizona. This is the only place in America where the United States mail is still delivered by mule. Not metaphorically, mules with saddlebags walking down switchbacks. Supai sits 3,000 feet down inside the Grand Canyon. No roads in, no roads out. You hike 8 miles, ride a horse, or pray for a helicopter. The Havasupai tribe village holds between 200 and 500 residents, depending on who's home that week. Mules carry up to 200 pounds each, hauling about 41,000 pounds of supplies per week. Groceries, propane, prescription meds. The local elementary school is consistently ranked one of the worst performing in the Bureau of Indian Education System. There is no high school. In the 2020 census, the population was literally counted as 0. The waterfalls are unbelievable. The turquoise water, the red rock, postcard stuff, no filter needed. That's the bait. Now the trade-off. Want Amazon Prime? Congratulations, you now have Amazon Mule. 2-day shipping is 10-day donkey, weather permitting. Want a refrigerator? Hope the mule's having a good back day. Want urgent care? Urgent care is a helicopter, and the helicopter is grounded because the wind in the canyon eats helicopters for breakfast. Forgot the toilet paper on your last supply run? You're walking 8 miles up 2,000 vertical feet to fix that. And you're going to think about your life choices the entire way. Picture a mule train clopping down switchbacks at sunrise, carrying cases of soda, a propane tank, and somebody's prescription. 0 cell signal. Just you, the rock, and the slow, honest pace of an animal that doesn't care about your schedule. Comment mule if you genuinely consider living somewhere your Amazon delivery driver has hooves. And speaking of places where the basics don't quite reach, the next town's tap water glows under ultraviolet light. That's not a metaphor either. Number 11, Cahokia Heights, Illinois. This is a town so flooded with raw sewage that residents bought boats to navigate their own streets. Not for fun, for commuting. Cahokia Heights, population about 17,894, was formed in 2021 by merging the cities of Centerville, Alorton, and Cahokia. Centerville was named the poorest city in America in 2018, with a poverty rate around 50%. A university-led study found that over 40% of adults tested were infected with H. pylori. Community testing found E. coli in tap water, 8 of 118 samples. And in January 2026, a federal consent decree ordered roughly $30 million in fixes plus a $30,000 civil penalty. The streets here aren't paved. They're brewed. The basement isn't flooded, it's seasoned. The tap water doesn't run clear. It runs criminal. One resident's water was tested, and it actually glowed under a UV light, which is a thing tap water is, generally speaking, not supposed to do. Your toilet floods, the city says they'll get to it. Your yard floods, the city says they'll get to it. Your grandmother's flower garden becomes a wetland ecosystem with its own zip code, and the city, very politely, says they will get to it. Subscribe because once you've seen what's happening in Cahokia Heights, the phrase infrastructure issues hits very differently. And if you think this is bad, the next town has a problem so big it broke the wind speed record for the entire planet. Number 10, Moore, Oklahoma. Moore has been hit by 2 separate EF5 tornadoes, once in 1999, again in 2013, and roughly 24 tornadoes total since 1890. The 1999 storm produced the highest wind speed ever recorded inside a tornado, anywhere on Earth. Per the World Meteorological Organization, a Doppler on wheels reading from that twister was reanalyzed in 2021 and now stands at 321 miles per hour. That's the official record. The 1999 storm killed 36 people and caused $1 billion in damage. The 2013 storm killed 24, including 7 children at Plaza Towers Elementary, injured 212, and caused around $2 billion, making it the costliest tornado in Oklahoma history. Statisticians have estimated that any one town might expect a tornado roughly once every 1,000 years. Moore gets them on repeat. The thing about Moore is the rebuilding. Subdivisions go up, they come down, they go back up, right in the same path, on the same plot. With the same foundation slab, the last twister cleaned off like a sponge. Insurance companies in Moore have a separate algorithm. It's called No. Locals know the siren tones by ear. They can tell you which county it's calling for before the news radio catches up. And every spring, the sky turns that specific shade of green-black that anywhere else on Earth would be called a movie effect. And in Moore is called Tuesday. Would you build a house twice on the exact spot a 321 mile per hour wind erased your last one? Comment yes, no, or I'm not telling my insurance about this video. And the next place on our list isn't fighting the sky, it's fighting Charles Dickens. Personally, number 9, Cairo, Illinois. Charles Dickens visited this town in 1842 and called it, quote, a detestable morass, a breeding place of fever, egg, and death. He reportedly based the hellish town of Eden in Martin Chuzzlewit on it. It has not, in the nearly 2 centuries since, gotten any better. Cairo sits at the southernmost tip of Illinois, where the Mississippi and Ohio rivers meet. Population peaked at 15,203 in 1920. Today, it sits at about 1,680, a collapse of roughly 89% across 8 consecutive census declines. There is no hospital. The last one closed in 1986. There is no drugstore, no movie theater, no laundromat, no gas station chain you'd recognize. The median home value is around $32,000. Poverty, by some local reporting, hits around 36%, about 3 times the national average. The for sale sign in Cairo is municipal art at this point. It's not advertising, it's decor. The high school graduates 22 students in some years. The roads are technically there. The buildings are technically there. The town is technically there. Everything in Cairo is technically there, in the same way a sandcastle at low tide is technically there. You drive in expecting small town charm, and you get set of a Coen Brothers movie that never got made because the studio backed out. Picture a foggy morning at the meeting of 2 giant rivers. Steam off the water, vine-covered storefronts behind you, old hand-painted signage still hanging over doors that haven't opened in decades. There's a beauty to it. There's also nobody around to share it with. Share this with a friend who keeps saying they're going to move somewhere real cheap and just figure it out. And if Cairo feels haunted by decline, the next town is haunted by altitude and weather, and the fact that everybody lives in the same building. Number 8, Whittier, Alaska. Between 80 and 90% of the entire town of Whittier lives in one 14-story building. The kids go to school through a tunnel. The only road in shuts at night, which means the town locks itself in. Whittier sits at about 272 residents. Snopes verified by phone with the city that the vast majority live in Begich Towers, a 196-apartment former military building. The town gets about 197 inches of precipitation a year. Winter winds run 60 to 80 miles per hour. The 2.5-mile Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel, the only way in by car, alternates traffic direction every 15 minutes and closes overnight. Living in Whittier means your high school, your post office, your church, your grocery store, and your police station all share an HVAC system with your bedroom. Want to avoid your neighbor? You can't, because your neighbor is also in the elevator. Hate your downstairs neighbors cooking? Move up 4 floors. They still live there. Have a fight with your boss? Cool. You'll see them at the laundry room in 20 minutes. There is no across town. There is only across the hall. And when the tunnel closes for the night, the town becomes a snow globe with no exit, except now you're the figurine, and the shaker is 60-mile-per-hour wind. Would you live in a town where everyone has the same return address? Yes, no, or I already do. It's called my college dorm. Let me know in the comments. And while Whittier seals itself in voluntarily, the next town got swallowed by the ground, unwillingly. Number 7, Bayou Corn, Louisiana. A whole town swallowed by a giant sinkhole that burps up crude oil and natural gas. The sinkhole opened overnight in 2012. It is still growing. On August 3, 2012, a collapsed salt dome cavern beneath Bayou Corn created what the Atlantic later called the biggest ongoing industrial disaster in the United States you haven't heard of. 350 residents were ordered to evacuate. The sinkhole has since grown to roughly 37 acres and 750 feet deep, swallowing 100-foot cypress trees whole. Texas Brine, the company that operated the cavern, paid evacuees $875 a week and a settlement totaling more than $48 million. By the 2020 census, only 32 residents remained. The ground here burps. That's not a metaphor. Gas literally bubbles up through the bayou like an Alka-Seltzer the size of a parish. Locals reported headaches, nausea, and a diesel smell that wouldn't leave. Trees that were there yesterday were gone today. The land itself became unreliable, which is one of those phrases you don't realize is terrifying until you're standing on it. One longtime resident told reporters that in his 25 years there, everybody he knew who died suddenly died of cancer. Like this video if the ground burps was not on your 2026 relocation checklist. And up next, we leave the bayou for a city where the danger isn't underground. It's right out on the street. Number 6, St. Louis, Missouri, home of the Gateway Arch. Also home, per the Center for Public Safety Initiatives, to the number 1 highest homicide rate of 24 major American cities in 2024, at 54.4 per 100,000 people. Population sits around 278,144, down from over 300,000 in 2020. The 2024 City Data Crime Index hit 742, which is roughly 3.2 times the national average and higher than 99.1% of U.S. cities. There were 150 homicides in 2024. Neighborhood Scout puts your odds of being a crime victim at 1 in 14. And researchers note that St. Louis's lethality rate, the share of violent incidents that end in death, runs notably higher than the average of 17 large U.S. cities. Translation: when it happens here, it tends to be final. The arch is called the Gateway. To what exactly? Because in some Northside neighborhoods, the gateway opens onto blocks of grand brick mansions standing empty, with trees growing through the roofs. These are real architectural marvels, by the way, late 1800s craftsmanship, the kind of detail you cannot buy new. And they sit hollow because the people with the money to restore them won't move there. And the people who already live there can't afford the copper wire that gets stolen out of the walls every 6 weeks. The city has an arch. It does not currently have a clear next chapter. Picture a North Side block at 9 p.m. Street lights on, nobody outside. Brick row houses with their windows boarded up like an entire history is being held hostage by silence. St. Louis homicides actually dropped 22% in early 2025, so credit where it's due. The trend is moving. The footprint of the damage, though, is generational. Subscribe if you've ever looked at a Zillow photo of a beautiful old brick house and thought, what's the catch? Because the answer is usually in the police blotter, not the listing. And the next place on the list isn't dealing with a single tough neighborhood. It's the poorest county in the entire country. Number 5, Pine Ridge Reservation, South Dakota. Pine Ridge is home to Oglala, Lakota County, which holds the title of the poorest county in the United States. Per capita income there sits at roughly $8,768, not monthly, annually. Per member citing census data, Oglala, Lakota County has the lowest per capita income in the nation. Wikipedia notes that of 3,142 U.S. counties measured in 2014, Oglala, Lakota ranked dead last in life expectancy, males averaging 62.8 years, with hospital-cited figures running as low as 48 for men and 52 for women in some periods. Unemployment is commonly cited between 80 and 90%. Teen suicide runs about 4 times the national average. Infant mortality, about 5 times. The thing to understand about Pine Ridge is that this isn't a small-town problem you fix with a Whole Foods. This is the long tail of 150 years of broken treaties, federal neglect, and policy decisions made in Washington by people who never had to live with the consequences. Move here, and you don't just inherit the view of the Black Hills, you inherit the failure of every administration since Grant. The houses are technically cheap, the systems around them are technically non-existent. Picture a one-room home at the end of a half-mile dirt path, a wood stove handling all the heat, a yard with 3 rusting cars stripped for parts, a sunset so big and orange it makes the silence feel intentional. Like this video, if you knew the per capita income but didn't know the life expectancy stat, because it should be a national headline. And the next place on the list is also losing, but slowly, to the ocean. Number 4, Ile de Jean-Charles, Louisiana. This is home to America's first official climate refugees, a small Native American island community that has lost 98% of its land to the Gulf since 1955. The island measured over 22,000 acres in 1955. Today it's down to roughly 320 acres, a 98% loss. The only road in, Island Road, was built in 1953 and floods regularly. In 2016, Louisiana won a $48 million federal grant from HUD to resettle residents inland. 37 of 42 families agreed to move to the new isle. Scientists estimate the original island disappears within roughly 50 years. The grim joke here is that waterfront property used to be a selling point. On Ile de Jean-Charles, it's the entire problem. The neighbors aren't moving away. The land is. The driveway floods. The road floods. The yard floods. The cemetery floods. Eventually, the cemetery doesn't even need to flood anymore because it's just gone. The state stepped in, federal money stepped in, and $48 million later, the takeaway is the same. The ground we built America on can also leave America. It's already leaving. Picture skeletal dead oak trees standing in open salt water where a neighborhood used to be. Stilted houses with the staircases hanging in midair, a heron at the edge of what used to be somebody's driveway. There's a strange dignity in it. There's also a clock. Share this with someone who still thinks climate change is a future problem. And from a town being slowly erased by water, we move to a town that was erased, quickly, by something far more man-made. Number 3, Peacher, Oklahoma. This is America's most toxic ghost town. At its peak, kids in Peacher rode their bikes up giant 200-foot piles of poisonous mining waste. Parents filled their kids' sandboxes with it. The Environmental Protection Agency eventually paid every resident to leave and then dissolved the town. Peacher's lead and zinc heyday pushed the population to roughly 20,000. Today, it sits at essentially zero. Per a peer-reviewed study, the U.S. Indian Health Service told the EPA in 1994 that 34% of the 192 Native American children tested from the Tar Creek area had blood lead levels exceeding 10 micrograms per deciliter. A 1996 survey found elevated lead in 63% of children tested in neighboring Cardin and 38.3% in Peacher itself. The 40-square-mile Tar Creek Superfund site was designated in 1983. Over 30 million tons of toxic chat still remain on site. And in 2008, while buyouts were still underway, an EF4 tornado came through and killed 8 more. Imagine a chamber of commerce that, for decades, basically marketed poison as a playground. Welcome to Peacher, where the soil is your enemy, the water is your enemy. The giant gray mountains kids called chat piles are your enemy, and your house, the air, and the creek out back are all enrolled in a long-term collaboration to make you sick. The town that was here had baseball games, prom nights, family barbecues, all of it normal. All of it happening on top of one of the worst environmental disasters in American history. By the time anyone in Washington took it seriously, the verdict was the same. This place can't be saved. Buy it out. Tear it down. Move on. And in a final cruel punctuation, the tornado showed up during the buyout, like the sky itself was rushing the timeline. Picture an orange-red creek where the water gives swimmers chemical burns they mistake for sunburn. Gray gravel mountains where streets used to be. A single pharmacy sign still hanging, abandoned, above a door that hasn't opened in years. Like this video, If the EPA Paid Everyone to Leave, is the cleanest plot summary of an American town you've ever heard. And while Peacher is the town America evacuated, the next one is the town America just kind of left burning. Number 2, Centralia, Pennsylvania. This is the town that has been on fire, underground, since 1962. The United States Postal Service revoked its zip code in 2002. It's the inspiration for the Silent Hill video games, and the fire is still going. Centralia peaked at 2,761 residents in 1890. About 1,500 people lived there when the fire started. Today, fewer than 10 residents remain. The coal seam fire burns at depths of up to 300 feet across an 8-mile, 3,700-acre stretch. Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection has said it could continue burning for over 250 years. The state invoked eminent domain on every property in 1992. Formal evictions began in 2009, and the last few holdouts won the legal right in 2013 to live out their lives there. So a quick mental exercise. Imagine an HOA. Then imagine the biggest HOA issue is the earth itself burning beneath your living room for 60+ years. In the late 1970s, a local gas station owner discovered the temperature inside his underground fuel tank had hit over 170 degrees Fahrenheit. A 12-year-old boy fell into a sinkhole that opened up under him and barely escaped. There's an abandoned section of Route 61 nearby called Graffiti Highway, a road buckled and cracked by the heat below it, that people now drive hours to spray paint, like it's a confessional made of asphalt. The street signs in Centralia still say things like, "Slow children at play." There are no children. There is no play. There is just heat and smoke. And the slow, patient logic of a fire that has been burning since the Kennedy administration is still quietly working. Picture a quiet morning in autumn, empty streets, smoke and steam drifting up through cracks in the pavement. The smell of sulfur, like rotten eggs, riding the wind. And somewhere underneath your feet, a fire that has been burning since the Kennedy administration is still quietly working. Comment 250 years if your brain refuses to process the timeline. And now we get to number 1. And trust me, this one is famous, beautiful, and so dark people drive past it slowly out of respect. Number 1. Lake Lanier, Georgia. This is a lake built on top of a town. Specifically, a flooded black community called Oscarville, plus parts of more than 250 families' homes, farms, and roughly 20 cemeteries, submerged when the lake was created in 1956. The streets are still down there, the foundations are still down there, at least one cemetery is still down there. And the lake, according to local legend and a lot of statistics, does not return what it takes. Here is what we know. According to USA Today, citing Georgia Department of Natural Resources data, more than 200 people died at Lake Lanier between 1994 and 2022, most attributed to drownings. Reporting across multiple outlets puts the total death toll since the lake's creation at over 700. There were 13 more deaths in 2023. The lake covers more than 50,000 acres. It draws about 11 to 12 million visitors a year. Divers describe near-zero visibility, snagged limbs from underwater trees, and a Lady of the Lake legend that locals have been swapping for half a century. Move to Lake Lanier and you get the dream first. The dock, the jet ski, the sunset over glassy water, the neighbor with the pontoon boat and a smoker the size of a Volkswagen. And then you start hearing the stories. The cousin's friend's friend who jumped in for a swim and didn't come back up. The boat captain who refuses to anchor in certain coves. The pictures of perfectly calm water at dawn that, if you zoom in, show the outlines of what used to be a steeple. You learn that one of the divers tasked with recovering bodies, a man named Buck Buchanan, has described reaching into the dark and feeling an arm or a leg, and it doesn't move. You learn that the area near the dam pulls swimmers under by sheer current. You learn that the haunted lake jokes you used to laugh at are mostly the way locals manage real grief. And then, one day, you stop joking too, because Lake Lanier doesn't seem like it's cursed in the dramatic Hollywood way. It seems like it's cursed in a much older, much quieter way. Like the lake remembers what it was built on, and it is, in its own time, working through it. Picture a soft Georgia morning, coffee on the dock, mist rising off the water, birdsong from the pines. A kayak gliding past, slow, easy, perfect. And under all of that beauty, the skeleton of a town, a street grid, a cemetery, a history nobody asked permission to bury. The neighbors here have a phrase. It's not the lake that's pretty, it's the lid. Like this video, if you've ever stood at the edge of beautiful water and felt the temperature drop for no reason. Subscribe so the next time the algorithm tries to sell you a dream relocation, you'll already know the questions to ask. And share this with a family member who just told you they're moving somewhere with a lake view. They need to see this list before the U-Haul leaves. Here's the truth, the relocation guides will never put in print. Cheap housing isn't a gift, it's a question. And the question is always the same. What does the town know about itself that the listing didn't mention? Some towns are cheap because they're undiscovered. These towns are cheap because they're not. Like this video, so the next person who sees it gets warned before they sign anything. Subscribe so when I post the follow-up, the 13 American towns that actually deserve your move in 2026, you don't miss it. And share this with the friend, the parent, the cousin, the coworker who keeps saying they're going to move somewhere real cheap and just figure it out. Forward this before they figure out the wrong way. Stay smart, stay curious, and whatever you do, read the EPA report before the real estate listing.